Language and brain are a study of the ability to use words or making signs and combining them in sentences in order to generate an idea so that the idea can be transmitted to other people. According to Hannah Damasio, it also studies onto how we comprehend the transmission given by others either through spoken, written, or observing movement and turning them into a concept of our own. In scientific terms, this study was to be known as neurolinguistic. The study of language is a supreme means of communication, especially in explaining technical concepts. Patricia Churchland, in her study, argued that the concept of cognitive compression is being implemented when communicating with other people. The concept of cognitive compression itself was a way for brain to categorize words and reducing complicated structure into a more manageable scale.
According to Benji Walt, there are no precise definition of bilingualism that has gained common agreement between linguists, as the extent and variety of bilingualism has increased over the time. In a simplest form, bilingualism can be described as to know two languages. However, according to Alexandra Gattardo and Amy Grant, major difficulties occur in defining what it means to know a language. Some bilinguals are highly proficient in both languages they speak, while other bilinguals clearly have a dominant or preferred language. Therefore, when classifying bilinguals, it is important to consider the varying degrees of bilingualism. Prominent researchers like Cutler and Mehler, however, settled that one can be considered as true bilingual when he acquired the native-like proficiency in both languages. In the brain, language faculty is located in the left hemisphere of the brain. It is composed of specific area in which Broca's area, Wernicke's area, motor cortex, and arcuate fasciculus. Language and brain can be related to the concept of bilingualism as exposure to a new language would add new lexical terms and grammatical rules, resulting in improvement of the second language acquisition and increasing the fluency of the language, which would stimulate brain's comprehension abilities. Studies have shown that bilingual brain will often stimulate traits that help in comprehending two languages. The most common traits that bilinguals tend to use is code switching. Code switching is a term that used to describe the use of two languages in a stretch of a conversation. This occurs when a speaker is transmitting messages while being unaware of the interference between languages, resulting in a mixture of languages in a conversation. An example of the bilingualism can be seen in this video.
Good.
When I'm bigger, right?
How old?
10.
¿Quieres ir a un juego de béisbol?
Sí.
It's short.
It can be seen here that the kid was using two languages, which is Spanish and English, to communicate with her parents. The use of English language was only specialized towards her father, while the mother seems to be communicating with her in Spanish. She speaks English with her father as the father has limited proficiency in Spanish. This occurs as a result of the kid being exposed to two languages while growing up, which simultaneously adding new phonetic sound and training her brain during the critical period of language learning. The reason code switching happens as it allows speakers to express themselves in a way that they like, while still maintaining the speaker's identity. In relation to the video, the kid was able to express her identity towards her father without excluding him from the communication.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm AMIRUL HAFIZ and I will explain to you about Wernicke's aphasia. What is the definition of Wernicke's aphasia? According to Michael Rotten, Wernicke aphasia, also called receptive aphasia, was first described by German physician Karl Wernicke in 1874 and is characterized by impaired language comprehension. Despite impaired comprehension, speech may have a normal rate, rhythm, and grammar. Patients with Wernicke's aphasia have impaired comprehension of their speech and thus do not recognize the errors that they are making. What is the relationship between the language and the brain and Wernicke's aphasia? This theme, that is language and the brain, is explaining about how our brain controls the language that is being used by humans, how we understand it, speak and generate it, and even how we read and write. Wernicke's area within the brain is crucial in the understanding of spoken language. Thus, when this part of brain gets damaged, one will be diagnosed with Wernicke's aphasia. As the effect, they will be unable to comprehend or express written or spoken language. The patient will most commonly have fluent speech, but their words will lack meaning. The other aspect of Wernicke aphasia is that the patient has auditory incomprehension. This means an individual is unable to understand what is being spoken to them. Lastly, patients with Wernicke aphasia are unaware of their lack of comprehension. Then we will go to the real-world example. The real-world example of Wernicke's aphasia is a man called Phil, 65 years old, was diagnosed with severe Wernicke's aphasia. According to the Aphasia Center 2024, Wernicke's aphasia in this case happens because the posterior portion of the left side of the brain has been damaged due to posterior stroke that is isolated in the area. As the effect, Phil did not know why people could not understand his speech. The police once put him into a psychiatric facility because they could not understand him. His wife was frustrated because he could not communicate anymore. With his fluent aphasia, he spoke using intonation and conversational rhythm, but only about 2% of what he said made any sense. For example, the skake mas the sun. Additionally, he could not understand much of what was being said to him. He and his wife learned different ways to communicate and how to help understand each other. Within 1 week of treatment, Phil could say over 15 relevant words per session, averaging 73 words. He averaged between 75% to 80% accuracy by the end of this program. Thus, from this case alone, we can see that the brain damage at the left side of the hemisphere does affect the utterance and comprehension of the language. Other than that, this case also shows that while Wernicke's aphasia can be tough, improvement through intensive aphasia therapy is definitely possible.
Okay, according to Lesky and Jack, a feral child is a child who has lived without contact with other people in a long period. The word ferals mean wild or untamed. These might live in isolation or be neglected, which means they miss out on learning how to speak, behave or interact with others in a normal behavior. Because of this, their behavior can be very difficult. According to Chambers, feral behavior is often challenging and harmful both to the child and to people around them. And it should happen because the lack of guidance, discipline and social support. The concept of feral child with language and the brain is strongly connected because language development depends on how the brain grows and works during childhood time. According to James Barrow, our brain, especially baby and children, are built to learn language through listening and social interaction. But for feral children that grow up without human contact, this important brain area do not get the chance to develop and process normally. This means they miss an exact time for learning language to communication, and their brain don't work at the part needed to understand and speak language fluently. The one famous case of feral children is Amala and Kamala. They were found in India at 1920. According to Du Plessis, Amala and Kamala were found living with many wolves by referencing. They act more like animals, walking, and their hands with raw skin. They avoid people and prefer raw food. They were taken to orphanage where Kamala slowly learned a few things like recognizing color, using her own cup and plate, and say about 30 words only when people ask her. The story of Amala and Kamala shows how important early human contact is for a child's brain and language development. In the early years of life, the brain is very active in bonding connection that help children learn how to speak and understand language. People usually call it a critical period, but for feral children like Kamala and Amala, those important brain areas do not fully develop. This makes it very hard for them to learn how to talk or behave like other children. Even after they were rescued, Kamala could learn few words, but she never spoke naturally. This proves that early experience with people and language are crucial for the brain to grow in a healthy way.
Moving on to the next one. Broca's aphasia. According to Cleveland Clinic 2024, Broca's aphasia is a language disorder that affects how you communicate but not your understanding of language. This condition is also referred as expressive aphasia or non-fluent aphasia. Furthermore, according to the National Aphasia Association 2025, those who are diagnosed with this aphasia will face difficulty in producing grammatical sentence, which leads to using more lexical morphemes rather than functional or inflectional morphemes in their speech. For instance, the patient would say, "Mary give John balloon," instead of "the balloon was given from John to Mary," due to the limited speech caused by the aphasia. What is the relation of the concept to the theme? The theme, language and the brain, is undoubtedly related to concept, as this is because the left hemisphere of our brain is used to understand, generate, and produce language. The left hemisphere of our brain contains crucial part in linguistic, such as the Wernicke's area, articulate fasciculus, Broca's area, and the motor cortex. My topic, which is Broca's aphasia, explain how the damage to the Broca area of our brain could affect communications and our articulation, such as distorted articulation, slow speech speed, and agrammatics. Hence, this topic shows that Broca's aphasia includes in the neurolinguistic studies. Next, I'm going to show you my real-world example.
And what have you been doing today?
Riding, but instead of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it's Monday, Tuesday.
That's right, going on a different day.
Yeah, and
This video shows us about a girl named Sarah Scott who has been diagnosed with Broca's aphasia since she was 18 years old due to a stroke attack in her class one day. In this video, she was asked multiple questions and was interviewed. She understands each question but seems to have difficulties in answering it. In the minute 103, when she was asked, "What have you been doing today?" she then answered with riding instead of Tuesday, Wednesday. This is a prime example of disordered speech caused by Broca's aphasia. She has struggles in the speech and keep repeating the word multiple times, which shows that she having a grammatical condition that affects her communication in using complete grammars in her sentence. Alright, that's all from me. Move on to the next person.
Moving on to the tip of the tongue phenomenon. According to Brown R, there is a state of tip of the tongue phenomenon in which one can recall words of the same shape and meaning, but fail to recall a non-word. This means that the word that came out of our mouths does not synchronize with the word from our brain. For example, you are trying to remember an actor's name, you can picture him, you know what movie he was in, maybe even the first letter of his name, but you just can't say the full name. So, what is the relation of brain and language? Brain and language definitely have things in common with each other, as brain is the organ that controls language. They are not always about how we think, they are about how our brains allow us to express the words we want to convey. Speaking fluently without stuttering or needing to remember the word you were attempting to say is possible when both of these functions work flawlessly together. Yet, occasionally, things do not go as planned. Psycholinguistics best explain this phenomenon, which focuses on how language is produced and processed in the mind, including how we remember words, sentences, meanings, speech, and comprehension. It also fits well since it discusses how a word that is kept in the word storage might momentarily be forgotten by the mind. Okay, moving on to the real-world example. Here's the example.
Okay, unpopular opinion. The spray hand sanitizer.
The previous video showed that the girl was about to spit out some unpopular opinion about hand sanitizer in her video. On the contrary, she mispronounced the word multiple times consecutively, where the words don't even make sense. The spray hand sanitizer, sanitizer, and lastly she got it right, hand sanitizer. This event can be called as malapropism. What is malapropism? According to Yul G, malapropism is a speech error in which one word is used instead of another with a similar beginning and number of syllables. Next, how did TOT occur? During TOT, Broca's area gets activated and tries to retrieve the sound form of the word, but it can't fully access it. It often gets stuck, repeating the mistakes numerous times for a few seconds before getting the right word.
Tongue slips are unintentional errors made while speaking. They happen when the speaker accidentally mixes up sounds, word or sentence structure, basically in which two parts of word or two words are switched. These slips can be funny or embarrassing, and they reveal how our brain organizes language during speech. In slip of tongue, there is spoonerism. The term spoonerism comes from Rev. William Archibald Spooner, an Oxford professor known for accidentally mixing up sound in his speeches. Most of his tongue slips involve the interchange of two initial sounds. For example, what he meant to say, it is customary to kiss the bride. What he actually meant, it is customary to kiss the bride. The connection between language and the brain can be seen clearly through slip of the tongue, which are accidental mistakes we make when speaking. For example, saying bake my bite instead of take my bite shows that the brain organizes language before we speak. Two important parts of the brain involved in this process are Broca's area and Wernicke's area. Broca's area, in the left front part of the brain, helps with producing speech, using grammar, and speaking clearly. Wernicke's area, in the left side of the brain near the ear, helps us understand language. These two areas are linked by a group of nerve fibers called the arcuate fasciculus. They send message from Wernicke's area to Broca's area and then to the motor cortex, which control the muscles used to speak. Slip of the tongue happen when there are brief problems in how these areas work together. If someone mixes up sounds, it may be due to an issue in Broca's area. If they use the wrong word, the problem might be in Wernicke's area. These small errors are not just funny, they actually help scientists learn more about how language works in the brain. They show that our brain often plans what we want to say faster than our mouth can keep up, which sometimes causes mistakes. In the video shown, the man accidentally said squashly freeze orange. This event is an example of what we call a spoonerism. He unintentionally switched the initial sound of the words. It should have been freshly squeezed orange. As we can see, the initial sound F and S were exchanged. This type of slip can sometimes occur when we experience a hiccup in a speech, such as when we try to finish a sentence in a hurry and unintentionally switch the initial sound of two words. The video is a perfect example of a spoonerism in linguistics, which is the topic